Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be working through an SAT practice test. And I think this is the one that was used in 2015. I got it off the College Board website. So we're going to be looking at the no calculator math portion and we're going to be working through it together. So you have two options here. You can either work through it yourself. I've linked it in the description box down below, so you can work through it yourself and check your answers with me, or you can work through it along with me. Alright, so this is the first question on the math no calculator portion. If x minus 1 over 3 equals k, and k equals 3, what is the value of x? Alright, so they give us the value of k, and they tell us that x minus 1 over 3 equals k. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute in the value of k, which is 3, into this equation to solve for x. So my equation ends up being x minus 1 over 3 equals 3. So now you just solve it like you would a regular algebraic equation. I'm going to multiply by 3 on both sides, so I can cancel out the denominator, and I end up with x minus 1 equals 9. Then I'm going to add 1 on both sides so I can get rid of the negative 1 on the left and isolate the variable. And I'm going to end up with x equals 10. And that's what they ask us for over here. Sometimes you need to be careful because they will ask you for a value other than x. So they might ask you, what is the value of x minus 3 or x minus 7? And you might have to modify x to get the right answer. But in this case, they only ask us for x. So the answer is 10, which is D. Alright, for I equals the square root of negative 1, what is the sum of 7 plus 3i plus negative 8 plus 9i? So all we have to do over here is add like terms. So the 3i and the 9i are like terms, and the 7 and the negative 8 are like terms. So we're just going to add those two together. So you add 7 and negative 8, which gives you negative 1, and you add 3i plus 9i, which gives you 12i. So your answer is negative 1 plus 12i, which is A. Okay, question 3. On Saturday afternoon, Armand sent M text messages each hour for 5 hours, and Tyrone sent P text messages each hour for 4 hours. Which of the following represents the total number of messages sent by Armand and Tyrone on Saturday afternoon? Okay, so first we need to find the number of text messages that Armand sent. So he sends M text messages every hour, and he sends them for 5 hours. So the total number of texts that he sent is 5M. Tyrone sent P text messages every single hour, and he sent it for 4 hours. So the total number of text messages that Tyrone sent is 4P. So the total number of messages sent by both Armand and Tyrone should be 5M plus 4P, which is answer C. Okay, question 4. Kathy is a repair technician for a phone company. Each week, she receives a batch of phones that need repairs. The number of phones that she has left to fix at the end of each day can be estimated with the equation P equals 108 minus 23D, where P is the number of phones left and D is the number of days she has worked that week. What is the meaning of the value 108 in this equation? So think about this logically. If I have some number of phones to repair every week, and I repair a certain number every day, how would I find the number I have left to repair? I would subtract how many I've already repaired from my original number, or total number of phones, right? So that's essentially what we're doing here. Since D represents the number of days Kathy works that week, 23 would represent the number of phones she repairs every single day. And 108 would represent the original number of phones, or the initial value, as in how many phones she has to repair at the start of the week. So typically for these questions, you just have to think of the situation and think of the equation and sort of connect what each part of the situation means in the equation to find your answer. And sometimes the way that the answers are worded can tempt you into picking the wrong answer or confuse you a little bit. So, my suggestion for these types of questions is figure out what each constant and each variable means in the equation and answer your question before looking at the answers so you don't get tricked. So, let's go back to the answer choices. I said that 108 represents the original value or the initial number of phones she has to repair. So that would be answer B. Kathy starts each week with 108 phones to fix. Okay, moving on to question 5. Which of the following is equivalent to the expression above? So in simpler words, what this question is asking you to do is simplify this expression. And all you have to do for that is combine like terms. But you have to be careful because you're subtracting over here. So what that means is you have to distribute the negative to each of the terms. I think some people refer to this as foiling. So negative turn to positive and positives turn to negative. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute the negative to get my full expression. So I have the first expression remains unchanged. So I get x squared y minus 3y squared plus 5xy squared. Then I'm subtracting a negative, so that becomes positive. So I have another positive x squared y. And then I'm subtracting a positive, so that becomes negative. So I have a negative 3xy squared. And 3y squared is a negative, and I'm subtracting that, so it turns to a positive. So I get a positive 3y squared. Then what I want to do is combine like terms. So x squared y plus x squared y is 2x squared y. And then negative 3y squared plus 3y squared cancel out, so you don't have any y squared in your answer. Then I have 5xy squared minus 3xy squared, which gives me 2xy squared. So my answer is C, number 6. A pediatrician uses the model above to estimate the height h of a boy in inches in terms of the boy's age, a in years, between the ages of 2 and 5. Based on the model, what is the estimated increase in inches of a boy's height each year? So you can either think about this logically. So I have h equals 3a plus 28.6. So what's happening is every time the boy's age increases by 1, since my slope is 3, my height increases by 3 every time the age increases by 1. So you can just think about that and say that the answer is A. But if it's hard for you to think like this, there's another easier, I guess, way to think about it. It's more time taking, but it's better than leaving the question blank. So what you can do is they tell us that this equation models the relation between age and height between the ages of 2 and 5, right? And they're asking you what is the estimated increase each year. So what you can do is pick two ages between 2 and 5. I'm going to pick 3 and 4. And you can plug them into the equation and find the two heights for those ages and find the difference in those heights to see how much the boy grows in a year. So for the age of 3, I would substitute in 3 for A, right? Plus 28.6. H equals 9 plus 28.6. H equals 37.6. When the boy is 3, his height is 37.6 inches. When the boy is 4, I substitute 4 in for A. So I'm looking for where to write this. I'm just going to cram it in here somewhere. H equals 3. I substitute in 4 plus 28.6. H equals 12 plus 28.6, which equals 40.6. So when the boy is 4, he's 40.6 inches. So if I look at the difference between when he's 4 and when he's 3, I find that the difference in height is 3 inches. So that means that the boy grew 3 inches in 1 year, which again gives me the answer A. Okay, so question 7. The formula above gives the monthly payment M needed to pay off a loan of P dollars at R% annual interest over N months. Which of the following gives P in terms of M, R, and N? So to solve this question, all I have to do is treat it like a normal algebraic equation. I want to isolate P, or isolate the variable to one side, so it looks like these equations, these answer choices down here, right? So what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to multiply by this value that is the denominator, so I can cancel it out. So I'm going to multiply that on both sides. One plus r over 1200 to the power n minus 1. And so what happens here is the two values cancel out. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the numerator. I am going to divide by, I don't want to write the whole thing out, but I'm going to divide by this value down here. And so those will cancel out as well. And I will end up with those in the denominator on the left side. So my P should end up equaling M times 1 plus R over 1200 to the power n minus 1 over R over 1200 times 1 plus R over 1200, this is long, to the power n. So which of my answer choices matches that? That would be answer choice B. Okay, moving on to question number 8. If A over B equals 2, what is the value of 4B over A? Okay, so they tell me that A over B equals 2. And another way to write 2 is 2 over 1, right? So that's what I'm going to do over here. And next, I'm going to flip these. So I'm going to write down B over A equals 1 over 2, because I'm taking the reciprocals of both. And the third and last step is to multiply both sides by 4. So I end up getting 4B over A equals 4 over 2, which is 2, which is answer choice C. Okay, number 9. What is the solution to the system of equations above? Okay, so we have our system of equations over here. When the system of equations looks like this, I prefer to use elimination instead of substitution. I only use substitution when the equations give you one variable in terms of another. So like if they give you x equals 2y or something, it's simple to substitute in 2y for the x in the other equation. But when the equations are like this, you have to change one of the equations to work for substitution, and I think that's just more time taking. So I'm just going to use elimination over here. So, okay. I'm going to keep the first equation the same way, 3x plus 4y equals negative 23, and I'm going to multiply the second equation by 3. Okay, so I get negative 3x plus 6y equals negative 57, I think. Okay, so the 3x and the negative 3x cancel out, and I end up with 10y equals negative 80. So y equals, I divide by 10 on both sides, y equals negative 8. So usually you don't really have to solve for both variables, because if I look at the answer choices here, there's only one that has negative 8 as a y value. So I know that my answer is B. So don't waste your time solving for both variables, because you want to get through this section as quickly as you can and go back and check answers, or go back to answers you're unsure about. Okay, question 10. For the function g defined above, a is a constant and g of 4 is equal to 8. What is the value of g of negative 4? Okay, so the first thing I notice here is that the equation that they give me, g of x is equal to ax squared plus 24, is incomplete. So I look to my question and they give me another piece of information, that when x is equal to 4, y is equal to 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in these values into my equation to find the value of a. So 8 equals a times 4 squared plus 24, which gives me 8 equals 16a plus 24. I subtract 24 on both sides, and I get negative 16 is equal to 16a. So my a is equal to negative 1. So what my equation actually is g of x, or y, is equal to negative x squared plus 24. So then I plug in negative 4 for x, and I get y is equal to negative 4 squared plus 24, which gives me y is equal to negative 16 plus 24, which is y is equal to 8. And my answer choice is A. Okay, question 11. In the equations above, B and C represent the price per pound in dollars of beef and chicken, respectively, X weeks after July 1st during last summer. What was the price per pound of beef when it was equal to the price per pound of chicken? Okay, so what they're telling me here is that the price of beef is equal to the price of chicken. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to substitute in the right side of these equations in for the variables. So my beef, or my price of beef, is defined as 2.35 plus 0.25x. And my price of chicken is defined as 1.75 plus 0.4x. So I'm going to isolate the variable to solve for x. I prefer my variables to be on the left, so I'm going to subtract 0.4x, subtract 0.4x, and I get 2.35 minus 0.15x equals 1.75. Subtract 2.35 from both sides, and I get negative 0.15x equals negative 0.6. So my x, if I divide by negative 0.15 on both sides, I get x is equal to 4. But my x is not what I'm looking for, because x is the weeks after July 1st, right? So to find the price, I'm going to have to substitute in 4 for x into one of the equations to find the actual price. So I'm just going to use beef over here. You could use either beef or chicken because remember the price is the same, but I'm going to substitute in 4 for x. So it should be 2.35 plus 0.25 times 4, which gives me $2.35 plus $1, $3.35, which is answer choice D. Number 12. A line in the xy plane passes through the origin and has a slope of 1 over 7. Which of the following points lies on the line? So they tell me that the line passes through the origin, right? Which means that its y-intercept is 0, 0. What it also means is that this line is a direct variation. So its equation is just y equals mx. There's no b because there's no y-intercept, right? So my equation ends up being y equals 1 over 7x. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plug in each of these points into my equation to see whether they are on the line. So if I plug in 0 for x, 1 over 7 times 0 is 0. So my y should end up being 0. And that is not the case for a. So a is wrong. If I plug in 1 for x, my y should end up being 1 over 7, which is not the case for b, so b is wrong. If I plug in 7 for x, my y should end up being 1, which is not the case for c, so it's wrong. So I know that my answer is D, but I'm just going to check it just to make sure. If I plug in 14 for x, my y ends up being 2, which works. Question 13. If x is greater than 3, which of the following is equivalent to... I'm not going to read this out because I'm going to butcher it. Okay, so how do we solve this? First, I'm going to add up the fractions on the bottom. So to add fractions, we know that they have to have a common denominator. So I'm going to convert my 1 over x plus 2. I'm going to multiply by x plus 3 in both the numerator and the denominator. And I get x plus 3 over x squared plus 5x plus 6. I'm going to do the same thing with the other fraction. So instead of multiplying by x plus 3, I'm going to multiply by x plus 2. So I get x plus 2 over x squared plus 5x plus 6. So my expression is, I have to add these two fractions together, right? So my expression ends up being 1 over 2x plus 5 over x squared plus 5x plus 6. Now, whenever I divide by a fraction, I am basically multiplying by its reciprocal. So what this ends up being is 1 times, I shouldn't have written that as an x, but moving on, 1 times x squared plus 5x plus 6 over 2x plus 5. And we know that multiplying by 1 does nothing. So this is my answer, which is answer choice B. So if this seems a little too complicated, if you don't like working with variables as much, there's another thing you could do. So let me just erase this all. They tell us that x is greater than 3, right? So you could pick for a value of x, and you could solve or find out the value of this expression, and then you could solve each of these with that same value for x, and whichever one of them matches the value that you find over here is your right answer. So let's say I pick x is equal to 4 because 4 is greater than 3. I would get 1 over 6 plus 1 over 7. So I have to make the denominators common to add them both. So I multiply by 7, multiply by 7, multiply by 6, multiply by 6, and I get 1 over 7 over 42 plus 6 over 42. 1 over 13 over 42, which becomes 42 over 13. Now, I don't want to solve for all of them, but I'm just going to show you that it will end up being the same for B. So I picked 4, right? So 4 squared is 16 plus 5 times 4, which is 20, plus 6 over 4 times 2 is 8 plus 5, which becomes 42 over 13. They're the same. So if you don't want to work with variables as much, this is something you could do. But personally, I find that it's more time-taking because you have to work through each and every answer. Okay, question 14. If 3x minus y equals 12, what is the value of 8 to the power x over 2 to the power y? Okay, so I actually really like this question. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to define y in terms of x. So I have a common power over here. So, okay, I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides, and I get negative y is equal to 12 minus 3x. Then I'm going to multiply by negative 1 on both sides to get rid of the negative on the left. And I get y is equal to 3x minus 12. So I'm going to substitute that in. For the y, that's the power of 2. So I end up getting 8 to the power of x over, over 2 to the power of 3x minus 12. So now we need to figure out how to combine this. And the only way to combine powers or to combine numbers that have exponents is to make them have the same base. So we know that 8 is the same thing as 2 cubed. So what this ends up being is 2 cubed whole power 6, x, sorry, I don't know why I said 6, over 2 to the power 3x minus 12. So when I have an exponent to another exponent, I have to multiply the exponents together. So I get 2 to the power 3x over 2 to the power 3x minus 12. And when I divide numbers with the same base with different exponents, I have to subtract the exponents. So this ends up becoming 2 to the power 3x minus 3x plus 12. So the 3x's cancel out and I get 2 to the power 12, which is answer A. Question 15. If ax plus 2 times bx plus 7 equals 15x squared plus cx plus 14 for all values of x, and a plus b equals 8, what are the two possible values for c? Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at here is what happens if I multiply these two terms. I get abx squared plus 7ax plus 2bx plus 14. Notice how the only x squared comes from multiplying ax and bx. And the only x squared in the product is 15x squared. So that means that abx squared equals 15x squared. If I cancel the x on both sides, I get the product of a and b equals 15. And the question tells me that the sum of a and b equals 8. So I need to find two numbers that multiply to 15 and add up to 8. And my numbers are 5 and 3. Because 5 times 3 is 15 and 5 plus 3 is 8. Now I have two options here. Either a can be 5 and b can be 3, or a can be 3 and b can be 5. And depending on which variable is what number, the value of c will change. So let's take a look at that over here. Let's say a is 5, so I get 5x plus 2, and b is 3, so 3x plus 7. My product ends up being, multiply 5x and 3x, 15x squared, multiply 5x and 7, gets 35x, multiply 2 and 3x, 6x, multiply 2 and 17, I get plus 14. So my product ends up being 15x squared plus 35, oh sorry, not 35, plus, let me just erase that, plus 41x plus 14. So if a is 5 and b is 3, my c value ends up being 41. But if a is 3, so 3x plus 2, and b is 5, so 5x plus 7, my product ends up being 15x squared plus 10x, because I'm multiplying the 2 and 5x, and then I multiply the 7 and 3x, so I get plus 21x, and then I multiply the 2 and the 7 to get plus 14. So my product is 15x squared plus 31x plus 14. So my c value ends up being 31. So my two possible values for c are 31 and 41, which is answer choice D. Now we're on to the graded questions. Question 16. If t is greater than 0 and t squared minus 4 equals 0, what is the value of t? So the first thing you should immediately notice here is the t squared minus 4. A squared minus b squared is equal to a plus b times a minus b. So t squared minus 4 should equal t plus 2 times t minus 2. So if that equals 0, so t plus 2 times t minus 2 equals 0. So when two numbers are multiplied together, if their product equals 0, that means one of the numbers that was multiplied is 0. So either t plus 2 equals 0 or t minus 2 equals 0. If t plus 2 equals 0, t equals, I subtract 2 from both sides, t equals negative 2. If t minus 2 is 0, if I add 2 to both sides, I get t is equal to 2. So now when you look here, you have two possible answers and you don't know what to grid in. But if I look back at the question, I see that t should be greater than 0. So my answer can't be t is equal to negative 2 because that's less than 0. So I grid in the number 2. Question 17. A summer camp counselor wants to find a length x in feet across a lake as represented in the sketch above. Let me just zoom out. Okay. The lengths represented by AB, EB, BD, and CD on the sketch were determined to be 1,800 feet, so AB is 1,800. EB is 1,400. BD is 700. And CD is 800. Segments AC and DE intersect at B, and AEB is equal to the measure of angle CDB. What is the value of x? Okay, so I noticed that these two angles are equal to each other in the two triangles, and I also know that these angles are equal because they're vertically opposite angles. And so when I have two angles that are of the same measure in two different triangles, that means that they are similar triangles. And basically what similar triangles are is that they have the same angles, they're made up of the same angles, so their sides are proportional to each other. So let's say if I have a triangle whose sides are 3, 3, 3, and I have a similar triangle, there's a certain number being multiplied to the value of the side to create this new side. So let's say my multiplier is 2. So my sides would be 6, 6, and 6. So over here, all we need to do is figure out what the multiplier is to convert the smaller triangle into the bigger triangle. So I noticed that these two sides are correspondent with each other, and the multiplier is 2 because 1,400 divided by 700 is 2. So then I'm going to look at which side is correspondent with the AE side. And I noticed that it's CD, which they give us the value for. So all I have to do is multiply 800 by 2 to get the feet or the measure of line AE. So 800 times 2 is 1,600, so that's my value. Number 18. According to the system of equations above, what is the value of x? So again, I'm going to use elimination here because I don't have one variable in terms of the other. So I am going to multiply the first equation by 2. So I get 2x plus 2y equals negative 18. I'm going to keep the second equation the same, so I get x plus 2y equals negative 25. And then I'm going to subtract the second equation from the first equation. So 2x minus x is x. 2y minus 2y, they both cancel out, and so I'm left with no y's. Negative 18 minus negative 25 is negative 18 plus 25, which is 7. In a right-angled triangle, one angle measures x degrees, where sine of x degrees is equal to 4 over 5. What is cosine of 90 degrees minus x degrees? Okay, first thing I'm going to do is draw this triangle because having an image always helps me figure things out, or like having a visual representation always makes questions easier. So this is my right angle. I'm going to make this my x. Okay, so sine of x is 4 over 5. We know that sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So if opposite over hypotenuse is equal to 4 over 5, that means that the measure of the opposite side is 4, and the measure of the hypotenuse is 5. So when you have 4 and 5, you should automatically figure out that one of the sides in the right angle triangle is 3, because 3, 4, 5 is a triplet number. I think it's called a Pythagorean triplet. It's associated with right angle triangles. Okay, so now that I have the sides of the triangle, I need to figure out what is cosine of 90 degrees minus x degrees. What they mean when they say 90 degrees minus x degrees, they're just referring to the other angle in the triangle. I'm going to call this y, but they're just referring to this angle when they say that because, think about it, all the degrees in a triangle is 180. I have a right angle, right? So I'm going to subtract 90 from that. I'm left with 90 degrees. 90 degrees is the sum of angles x plus y, right? So angle y, which is this angle over here, is equal to 90 degrees minus x degrees. So that's all they're referring to over there. And cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So we just need to find the cosine of this angle over here. So its adjacent is 4 and hypotenuse is 5. So the answer to this question is 4 over 5. Okay. Last question. If a is equal to 5 square root of 2 and 2a is equal to the square root of 2 times x, what is the value of x? Okay, so first they give me the value of a. I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation by 2 so I can get the value of 2a. So 2a equals 10 square root of 2. I also know from the question that 2a equals the square root of 2x. So 10 square root of 2 equals the square root of 2x. I can write this in a different way. So 10 square root of 2 is equal to square root of 2x is the same thing as square root of 2 times square root of x. I can divide both sides by square root of 2 and they cancel out. So I get 10 is equal to the square root of x. Then I square both sides to get rid of the square root on the x, and I get 100 is equal to x. So you should grid in the number 100. And we're done. That's all for this video. If this video was helpful, please like it and hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions, feel free to comment them down below and I'll do my best to answer. Also, if you have any suggestions for new videos you'd like me to make or new topics you'd like for me to explain, put those down in the comments as well. Happy studying and bye!